Anyone who's a fan of the Naruto series has to remember the first time Itachi pulled out his Susanoo against Sasuke. I thought Itachi was done after he got hit by Kirin and his body was lying on the floor all bruised and the Akatsuki cloak was ripped off. I thought it indicated he had taken, heavy damage. Combine that with the fact that Sasuke is, a shonen protagonist, he just pulled off his big move, and Itachi's face when he saw it. I don't think anyone could blame us for thinking that this was the last time we were going to see Itachi. But despite all that, Itachi rose up again, claiming that without his Susanoo, he never could have survived. This isn't the last Susanoo we'd ever see in the series, but it's the most special one for a few reasons, at least in my opinion. Itachi Susanoo, as a byproduct of being introduced before chapter 402, has a databook entry in databook 3, which gives it an informational advantage above the rest of them, which is obviously something I'm going to be going over in this video, along with his spirit weapons, which, quote unquote, make him invincible. Before that, if you could leave a like on the video and subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated, but let's get started. I want to start by going over the Yata mirror because there is the possibility that it's much stronger than you think. Obviously, when I say stronger here, I'm not talking about Itachi going around and smacking people with the mirror and doing damage. I'm talking about the mirror's defensive capabilities, which is mainly what every source that talks about the shield praises. We'll start by just talking about Zetsu's statement since it's the most widely known, and Zetsu, due to some end of the series retcon stuff, has a lot of credibility when it comes to talking about power. After watching Itachi Susanoo reflect everything thrown at it, Zetsu says that there's no mistaking that the shield he's carrying is another spirit weapon called the Yata mirror and is said to deflect all things. Some people normally try to go against this by saying that Itachi used the Yata mirror to block Kirin, so it got defeated by that jutsu since Itachi was inevitably damaged by Kirin. The context of the fight doesn't support this at all though. When Itachi says he couldn't have survived without this, quote unquote, he immediately turns on his Susanoo and it's just the ribcage form. As far as I'm aware, the only refutation to this is some reduction to absurdity type of argument that says, well bro, there's just no way Itachi tanked Kirin with just his ribcage Susanoo. But that's just pure conjecture, not an actual argument, and context supports otherwise. On top of the fact that, yeah, he didn't really tank it, he just survived it. I've tried to get people to understand this difference before, but it's hard for some people to grasp because I don't think I explain it too well. There is a difference between endurance and durability. For example, Danzo stabbing the Susanoo with a kunai and the Susanoo not budging but the kunai breaking shows durability. It was unable to affect the Susanoo in any way. But Tsunade breaking the Susanoo open but not destroying the whole thing is the Susanoo enduring an attack. The durability of it was overcome. Another example would be Minato getting cleaved by Kurama's nail. Minato's durability was overcome, but he was still able to endure through the attack despite having the nail pierced through him. So yeah, if Kirin bounced off the Susanoo and Itachi took no damage, I'd agree, he tanked it. But that just isn't what happened. He got laid out on the floor, his Susanoo and the Akatsuki cloak were ripped off, and he's bleeding from the mouth. Admittedly though, that last part could be due to his illness, but there's no way the illness ripped his cloak off and bruised his arms. This is getting a bit tangential, but yeah, I'm just saying Itachi did not tank Kirin, nor did his Susanoo tank Kirin. He just used it and happened to endure and or survive Kirin using his ribcage Susanoo. Anyway, back on track, something I've not really heard people bring up regarding the Yata mirror is its ability to change size drastically depending on what's attacking it. As you can see, Itachi's Susanoo, while it doesn't dwarf the Yata mirror, it is very clearly much larger than it. Then, when Orochimaru's 8-headed Hydra starts to attack, the shield moves and becomes larger than the entire Susanoo. I've also heard before that people think despite this, Orochimaru managed to shake Itachi's Susanoo, which literally never happens. I'll show Orochimaru and Itachi's entire interaction on screen in the manga here, and I'll switch to the black and white panels with the original manga so everyone knows I'm being legit. And if you really want to fact check me, and you think I'm leaving out a panel or something, you can go to chapter 392 and look for yourself, but here it goes. The Hydra comes out and we get this cool double spread page. Itachi can't see at this point, so he has to go off heavy sensory, and he says based on feeling, it's Orochimaru's 8-headed serpent. They have a standoff. Itachi starts walking forward, but Orochimaru launches the first attack. Itachi immediately responds before the snake even gets to him, pulls out the Totsuka blade and cuts the snake's head off. 3 more heads attack him, and then the interaction I just described earlier happens when he blocks them with the Yata mirror, growing in size to cover the entire Susanoo. That part that I just described is the only time Orochimaru's Hydra even hits the Susanoo. After this, Itachi just cuts off all the heads, and then when Orochimaru pops up himself, he seals him with the Totsuka blade. So yeah, the Susanoo was never shaken. I'm aware it's possible this happened in the anime. I haven't seen it in a while to know, but if it does happen there, it should just be taken as non-canon filler, because the original way Kishimoto wrote it was a stomp in Itachi's favor. Now let's read the 3rd databook's entry for Itachi's Yata mirror. As you can see, there is a lot of information on this page, but for this section in particular, we'll be focusing on these 2 passages. Starting with the passage titled Yata Mirror. A spirit weapon without physical form, with the power to change every one of its properties, allowing it to alter its attributes in accordance with the attributes of the attack, rendering the attack ineffective. The mirror altering its properties has been incorrectly interpreted before to mean its chakra natures or something similar to what the Truth Seeker orbs do, since they are comprised of every chakra nature. However, this is not only a misinterpretation, it's just outright wrong. Nothing about this ever even mentions chakra natures or anything. It even says that the mirror has no physical form, and chakra is both physical and mental, so it wouldn't really make sense for it to be talking about that. Altering every one of its properties is on display when fighting against Orochimaru, albeit in a very small way, but the mirror blatantly growing in size is indicative of a property being altered, and since it says it changes in accordance with the attributes of the attack, it sort of implies the Yata mirror can become an omnidirectional defense. I have more things to support this idea, but let's move on to the next passage first. Susanoo boasts an absolutely perfect attack and defense because of the spirit weapons it wields in both hands. The 10-hand sword that can cut down any enemy in its right, and the Yata mirror, a shield that can repel any attack. In the face of a god's power, all attacks, whether from a material or astral body, ninjutsu or physical, lose their meaning. In this passage, it's repeated twice over that any attack and all attacks can be repelled or lose their meaning when contested by the Yata mirror. This lends credence to the earlier idea I mentioned that the mirror should be able to become an omnidirectional defense. Let's go through this again. The Yata mirror can alter every one of its properties, including size. It can repel any attack, and all attacks lose their meaning in front of its power. If that's not enough, I'll go over even more evidence. Here is another statement saying that the mirror can deflect anything, also from Databook 3. Alongside the Zetsu statement and the fact that we never have seen anything bypass the mirror, I think it's safe to conclude that the mirror is an omnidirectional defense, or at least it can become one. Here is also another statement from Fanbook 2, but I'm just unsure of the translation for this one, so I'm not going to say it's extra evidence, but it does exist. Last thing I'm going to mention is just the fact that the earlier paragraph says the Susanoo had a perfect attack and defense because of the spirit weapon, and the title of the passage says that the Susanoo wields magical matchless weapons. I'm pretty sure that's all we've ever gotten stated or shown about the Yata mirror, so I'll leave this here for now. Itachi never really uses it again after this anyway. I do want to say before moving on that Databook 3 only covers up to chapter 402, so it's not all too safe to claim that the statements talking about the Yata mirror are referring to anything that's introduced past this point, such as Madara Susanoo, the Truth Seeker orbs, Kaguya, etc, etc. If you don't know what chapter 402 is, it's when Sasuke turns Hebi into Taka and awakens his MS for the first time on the beach. Just as a point of reference, it's right before the B versus Taka fight and Naruto learning Sage Mode. But with all that being said, let's move on to the next weapon, the Totsuka blade. Luckily for all of us, this weapon has a lot less to it than the Yata mirror, just a lot of repeated statements, so we'll be bringing this back to the databook page and focus on 2 passages we didn't read earlier, which are these 2 that are both captioning separate images. Starting with the one titled Totsuka blade, a variant of the Kusanagi blade that is endowed with the power to plunge those it pierces into a genjutsu world of drunken dreams and seal them away for all time. The blade itself is imbued with sealing jutsu. Pretty simple stuff here. The passage just tells us that Itachi can seal you away with the Totsuka blade, and that it puts you in a genjutsu after it seals you away. The top passage here basically just tells us how the blade is equipped. Liquid spilling from its gourd bottle turns into the Kusanagi blade. Souls sucked out by the sword are sealed inside. Going back to the earlier passage, and sorry for repeating myself, but it's pretty important. It mentions the Susanoo boasting a perfect attack and defense due to its spirit weapons, but it also says that the 10-handed sword can cut down any enemy. I do want to bring up a discussion about the mechanics of the Totsuka blade, since I think it's an interesting point of conversation. Do you think the Totsuka blade needs to directly pierce someone in order to seal them? I'm going to leave my opinion out of it, but the main argument is that when Itachi does seal someone with the blade, both times, Nagato and Orochimaru, he pierces them directly rather than a slash or a cut. Then there's the fact that he cut all the Hydra heads but didn't seal Orochimaru until he pierced his body directly, like I just mentioned. Of course, this argument could be offset by saying the Hydra body isn't Orochimaru or that it isn't connected directly to his soul. Again, I won't give my opinion on it, just comment what you think. The Totsuka blade has another name, which is the Sakigari blade. This passage is the end of Data Book 3. It says that the sword is covered in sealing spells, and those who are stabbed by it are drawn into a genjutsu of drunken dreams. Nothing really new, but I thought I should mention it. I also wanted to mention an argument that I think has potential, however, it's not really too concrete. The Totsuka blade can probably bypass your durability and cut you up no matter what. Since the Totsuka blade lacks a physical form as stated numerous times over and over again, and since we see Itachi cutting up the Hydra heads with it, we know the Totsuka blade can interact with the physical even without having physical form. And without a physical form, the formula for force, which is mass times acceleration, gets rendered useless, it's ineffective. So yeah, to shorten that down a little bit, Itachi can cut you up no matter what, maybe. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier with the Yata mirror, these statements coming from Data Book 3 means you should take caution when applying them to anything mentioned after chapter 402. Of course, these weapons are both held by Itachi Susanoo, which itself is already insanely strong. I already went over earlier what I thought about it blocking Kirin in just its ribcage form, and I'll get to describing in a second, but first and foremost, Zetsu says due to wielding both of these weapons, Itachi is just straight up invincible. This statement is seemingly backed up by the data book calling them both a perfect attack and defense, and also claiming that the Susanoo wields matchless weapons. Taking a look at the right side of this page, finally, we can read the Susanoo's description. Residing in the eyes of those who grasp the workings of heaven and earth is a tempestuous warrior wielding a sword and shield. Two jutsu allowed to be used only by those whose eyes have opened to Mangekyo Sharingan, the heavenly eyes that see all things in the universe. Amaterasu representing the light of the material world, and Tsukuyomi the nightmare realm representing the world of the mind and darkness. Susanoo is the strength of the tempestuous force that resides only within those who have mastered both of these techniques. Chakra takes the physical form of a formidable looking warrior whose rampaging soul will not settle down until it has destroyed all enemies before him. This passage, as a lot of you could probably tell, says that the Susanoo can only be used by people who have awakened Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi in both their eyes. And I'd just like to point out that in the context of this data book, that is true. At this point in the series, Itachi is the only one with the Susanoo, and even people we know have the Susanoo later, like Madara when he's fighting Hashirama, does not have his Susanoo when we see the art before we get to see what happened in that actual fight. It maybe hints at the idea that this was supposed to be Itachi exclusive jutsu before Kishimoto just started slapping it on other Uchiha. However, that's just conjecture, so I'll leave that up for interpretation. What isn't conjecture though, is that at the time, this is true. You can fact check me if you think I'm wrong, but up to chapter 402, like this data book covers, does anyone in the manga use a Susanoo? The answer is no. Like I said, you can fact check me if you want to, but I am confident I'm right. Itachi can change the stages of his Susanoo at will, but I think a lot of people are under the impression he needs to have his Susanoo fully manifested into the armor stage in order to pull these weapons out and use them. This is just simply not the case. As you can see here in chapter 393, He has the Yata mirror on and protecting him, while he does not have the full Susanoo armor on. I don't even really know what to call this stage of Susanoo, but being honest, I just know it's not a full manifestation. With both these weapons out, as well as numerous databook statements and Zetsus, it becomes easy to see why someone with this gear would be considered invincible. To start wrapping up the video, I just briefly want to recap all the information that's been covered so far. Itachi's Yata mirror is kind of underrated and should have the capability to become an omnidirectional shield, meaning it can cover the entire Susanoo, and it doesn't have a physical form, nor is it made out of chakra. This should make it immune to being absorbed by things like the Rinnegan or karma absorption from someone like Boruto or Kawaki. It can alter every one of its properties, and I didn't get too far into what this entails earlier, but considering it's stated numerous times to deflect any attack, the only real important property that it needs to be able to alter is its size. This shield should be able to defend against anything seen in the manga up to chapter 402, so yeah, that's that. The Totsuka blade can seal any enemy it pierces into its gourd, but it's relatively unclear whether this pertains to a direct pierce or a slash could get the job done, but I left it up to you to decide in the comments. And these two weapons together give Itachi a perfect and matchless attack and defense that can cut down any man and defend or repel against any attack. Zetsu and Orochimaru make it seem like you could find these weapons anywhere the way that they say Itachi had them and no one knew where they were. The databooks also somewhat back this up, but that also may lend credence to the idea Itachi, if he wanted to, could just hold these weapons without the Susanoo, but that's complete headcanon, so I don't even want to enter that territory. I just wanted to mention that. So if you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it a lot, and have a nice day.